So here I am with Armin, and I was just saying before we started recording that Armin sent me a really tough agenda. He didn't make it easy on me, and before we go through your agenda, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Honestly, I think the agenda captures it. Yeah, I think in writing it, I was just thinking, hey, I don't want to overwhelm.
Yeah, well,
Professor
thanks for that, but it was still a tough agenda. So Armin, you went through the pivot course, right?
I went through the pivot course. I'm a pivoteer.
Yeah, you're a pivoteer. I love that. And I don't know if you've ever heard President Obama's "One Voice Can Change the World." He gave a speech. It's on YouTube somewhere, and it's one of my favorite speeches. He's an incredible speech maker. I do keynote speaking, and Armin, one of the things I would never want to do is speak after President Obama. I wouldn't mind speaking before the president, but to speak afterwards, it's like, the most handsome man in the world, maybe, like a Brad Pitt, and then, there's me. So Obama's such a great speaker, but he tells a wonderful story. And right at the end of this about 4 or 5 minute story, he says, "It just goes to show you how one voice can change a room. And if it can change a room, it can change a city. And if it can change a city, it can change a state. And if it can change a state, it can change a nation. And if it can change a nation, it can change the world." And so one of the things that, I kind of exhort the pivoteers, you took the pivot course, the pivoteers to do, and the people I coach, is not to always accept that we can't change the world. Because, humanity and the planet are at risk right now. We are.
Yeah.
We 10 years ago, I wasn't sure about that. There was a lot of evidence, but it wasn't conclusive, at least in my mind, it wasn't. But I think it is now conclusive. And so one of the things that I take away from Obama's speech, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in this YouTube video. It's only 5 minutes. But if you have time, not now because we're going to do coaching now, but you copy it out of the text, out of the chat box, and I think you should watch it. And the reason for that is that I want to help people start their own personal business for life, and I want them to own some real estate as well if that's possible. And there's lots of good reasons for that, to take care of yourself and your family, hopefully for 3 generations, great, but also to help other people. And what I mean by that is that you can't really help other people until you're in a position to help other people. I saw a video, and I won't go on too long about it, but it's just important to me to say this to you, and I'm going to say it to lots of other people. I saw, I think it was a Netflix thing where these 4 or 5 American boys went to Central America, maybe it was Guatemala, maybe it was Nicaragua, I don't remember. And they went into the backwoods and they stayed with some Mayan people, some Mayan folks, in a small village where the average income, I think, was $1 or $2 a day. And they decided to go and live there and experience what it was like to, to try and live on $1 or $2 a day. Well, it wasn't very long, maybe a couple of weeks before the American boys started to get sick. And so the villagers, who have no margin for error, zero, all of a sudden had 4 or 5 American boys in their 20s that they had to take care of. And I got mad at the screen. I wasn't yelling at the screen, but I felt like it. And I thought, if you're going to go to Central America or to a poor village somewhere, it's not to become a burden on people who can't afford not one extra thing, but it's to help in some meaningful way. And so what you can do, Armin, by building a successful personal business for life, building a successful real estate empire, is you can animate that. My term is animation for real estate, right? You can add revenue streams, but then you could teach other people to do it. And think about this. Let's say you did go and buy a few properties in Sarnia or whatever. Um, it actually helps you. It could be a self-interest. You know, it doesn't have to just be you feel like being a do-gooder, but it actually helps you if you own 4 or 5 properties in a small town, and you help other people animate their properties. Then everybody's properties go up in value. All boats are rising, and so that's part of the mission that I'm sort of recruiting you into.
I see. I hear you.
All right, so we've got to make sure that Armin is successful, because otherwise you'll be like those 4 or 5 American boys. You'll just go and sit and die with the other villagers. That is of no.
We don't want that.
We don't want that. That is an atrocious thing that they did. So you've looked at a couple, and when it comes to real estate, you've looked at a few different models. I think one of them was the Longyards model.
Yeah.
And did you ever talk to Chris Long?
I didn't.
All right. So if you were going to go and do something in Toronto or in Sarnia or wherever with the Longyards model, I would strongly suggest that you talk to him. I think you have his contact information, but if not, I'm going to give it to you right now. Just give me a second. Did you copy that thing that I just put in the chat box?
I'm going to do that right now.
Yeah, do that. Just put it somewhere you can find it again. And I'm going to put, also I'm going to put Chris's email address in there, and his phone number. He's a contractor as well. And so he's probably more of a phone guy than an email guy, if you understand what I'm getting at.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm a pretty big email guy, as you probably figured out. But there's lots of people who are still, you know, hey, call me.
Yeah, no, totally.
All right, so here's his contact information. You should copy that as well, so you have it.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm a big believer in is try not to work too hard, even though I work a lot of hours, but try not to work too hard, or maybe it's better to say it's important to work smart. So rather than reinventing the wheel, Armin, if you're going to, you know, do some kind of mini contractor yards, mini storage kind of thing, reach out to people who are actually in the business and who are being successful, because you know, that's one of the mistakes I made in my career. You know, I was young once, and I was pretty much a know-it-all, if you know what I mean. You know, I was constantly doing this, you know, thinking, oh yeah, you're really smart. But I would have had a more successful career if I had paid more attention to the other people who had already been there, done it, bought the T-shirt. And so, you know, I've got about 12 people across Canada, the United States, who are doing the mini contractor yards business or mini storage businesses. All of them are being very successful. So one of the questions you asked me in your agenda was, I think you asked me this, is it a concern if there are other competitors out there? And my answer to that is probably no. I actually like competition. And have you ever noticed when you go to the Starbucks, you know, if you go to a Starbucks in Toronto, right next door there'll be, you know, McCafe, and there'll be a Second Cup, and there might be 3 or 4, even 5 coffee shops, all within, you know, a few meters of each other. And if you go and get, you know, I know you don't have a driver's license, but if you go and fill up your car, sometimes there's a Shell station, an Esso station, you know, and other stations, all 3 or 4 of them there. These days, when you go into a subdivision to buy a house, you'll often find 2 or 3, sometimes as many as 4 or 5 home builders there. And the reason why they do that, coffee shops, petrol stations, home builders, is that maybe you don't want a Starbucks coffee every day. Maybe you would like a Tim Hortons coffee one day, or McCafe coffee another day, or Second Cup coffee. Or if you're going to a subdivision, and if you have a family, you're going to buy a house there, you know, maybe one of the builders makes very nice stucco homes, but maybe you or your spouse or your family really hate stucco. So you go across the street and you buy a brick home. And somebody else goes to that same subdivision. They don't really like old-fashioned brick homes. They go across the street and they buy a stucco home. So sometimes when you have lots of competition. Most people would say, oh my God, I'm going to fail. But that actually doesn't happen to be the case in most circumstances that I'm familiar with. So I wouldn't worry about the fact that there might be a competitor, you know, a few blocks down. The main thing you have to worry about in any business that you start, Armin, is your ability to execute. So our ideas are really useful and important for sure, but if you can't execute, then what's the point? Okay, so you looked at the Longyards model. Then the next model I think that you talked about was maybe, you know, multi-family, multi-residential. Was that correct?
Right, right. Yep.
And then I sent you, I think I sent you that Sarnia model that we're working on,
Yeah.
which is actually pretty cool too. So
Yeah.
were there any other models that you were looking at in terms of real estate?
I'm only thinking of what I'm familiar with, as well as what I'm not familiar with, but what I can wrap my head around.
Of course. So what are you familiar with?
I just sold a condo.
Right.
The closest thing to a condo would be a single detached home. You know, I can get there in terms of understanding what relationships need to be in place in order to manage a tenancy. I would consider it a way higher way higher level of difficulty to go to multi-unit where now I'm managing a dozen tenancies, but I can wrap my head around it because I get the basics. It's a whole other kind of layer to then talk about converting before we even get to the managing of the tenancy. So since you introduced me to the Sarnia model, I've been reflecting on kind of what are the stages of progress, and what does it look like to execute in each stage.
Right. So, I mean, you know, I'm not very keen on the condo model. You probably know that. Simply because,
I understand why. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure you do. You know, condos have more rules than porcupines have quills. They do. You know, I own one condo, and that is probably uh, one more than I would really want to own. And you know, we wanted to animate this unit. It's a beautiful townhouse, actually. It's very nice, but it naturally divides into two. I mean, it absolutely does. You put one door in there, you've got basically two units, which would be a cool animation. But getting the condo, you know, if I had, you know, one 2-bedroom apartment here and one 2-bedroom apartment here in my townhouse condo, I'd get a lot more rent than just one 4-bedroom. But getting permission to put one door in the condo is like, I don't think we're going to ever get it. I mean, I just don't think it's going to be realistic. So our cap rate on that, I'm disappointed to tell you, is about 3.5%. And you remember what a cap rate is?
Yes.
Okay. And you understand the concept of what it means?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
100%. So you know, I recommend don't buy anything less than 6%. And there I am stuck with a condo that has a 3.5% cap rate, which I could get to about 5.5%, I think, if I could divide it into two. But I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do that. Now, we keep that particular condo in our portfolio because of certain other reasons that are family related. We have one child who needs some help, and that's why we do it. Otherwise, I would just sell it, I think. The other thing that's problematic about condos is that you have no control over condo fees, not really, and no control over special assessments. And since we've owned this particular townhouse condo, I think we've had 2, maybe even 3 special assessments. You know what a special assessment is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And our condo fees, I think, have gone up 50% in the last 7 years. So because you can't really easily animate condos, you can't really change them very much. You don't really have the kind of control that you want. I don't think you should use condos as your model. Would you agree with that?
I don't have any interest in getting back
Yeah.
into condos.
Yeah.
I made a profit off the sale, but that was just from appreciation, and I don't want to rely on appreciation.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength then, because I have one building that I own, that townhouse condo, that I lose $500 a month on it. I do.
Yeah.
And I don't really like losing money. That gets old and boring pretty quickly. I owned an NHL team for a while, and NHL teams unfortunately seem to have a nasty habit: money goes in but never out.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to own another National Hockey League team, even, especially now in COVID-19. But I wouldn't want to own another team even if it was normal circumstances. And I don't want to own any more properties that lose money every month. And so you and I are on the same wavelength. One of the things that you can do, if you're not comfortable with multifamily, you're not comfortable with Longyards, you're not comfortable with the Sarnia model, one of the things you can do, which is pretty simple, is you can you can buy a single family home in a small town near where you live, and add a basement apartment. Did you ever see what one of my daughters, I have 5 kids. Did I ever show you, or did you ever see what one of my daughters did with her home?
I don't recall.
I don't think I would have shown that to you, but this is probably the simplest model that I can think of that makes money, and I'll show you what she did. Okay.
Sure.
And so this works. I mean, there's no question this works. This is very simple to do, and I think you would have no trouble mastering it. I'm sure of that. So let's look at her slide deck here. All right, I'll share the screen with you. So this is one of my daughters. This is Mimi. Oops, what happened here? Yeah, it doesn't really like me to, so I'll just start. Okay, can you see it okay?
I can, yeah.
So this is Mimi. She's in her 20s, and she bought this property at 3 Splinter Crescent. So you haven't seen this on any of my video trainings. I don't want to repeat something.
Yeah.
So this is a half a double. You know what a double is, right?
Yeah.
So there's you're seeing her house here. There's another one stuck on they have a common wall. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, single family home. Well, half a double, so close to it, with a single car garage. So 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, single car garage. But when we looked at it about 4 years ago now, if you go along this path here and you go around the side, you can kind of notice how it's sloping down.
Right.
And so when you go around the side and then you get to the back of the house, you'll notice this door and a window here.
Nice.
That's called a walkout condition. Right, so you're in the basement, you can just walk out. And when I stood there looking at this home with Mimi, I said, Mimi, this is the place for you. And she said, Dad, why? And I said, I'll show you. Now, before we go inside, I'll show you a couple of other things that we look for. So Ottawa's a pretty small town, especially compared to Toronto. But even so, I look for places, whether it's a single family home or a multi-res, whatever it might be. I look for properties that are fairly close to downtown, if possible. I look, in this case, here's her property here, and she is literally 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes away from Britannia Beach, which is one of the best beaches in our town. And for young people, being close to the beach is always nice. Do they have Farm Boy in Toronto?
They just got it, I think, a year ago in Etobicoke, West End.
So in Ottawa, they started in Ottawa, so there's lots of them here. So she's about 4 minutes away from Farm Boy. It's just nice shopping. So she's close to a beach. She's close to shopping. She's close to downtown. She's also close to a big employment generator. This is the Queensway Carleton Hospital. And you know, hospitals have thousands and thousands of people working in them, right? So if you're going to have a home that you're going to renovate and rent, you want to be close to employment because that's where your tenants are probably going to come from.
Right.
So from the Queensway Carleton, where thousands of people work in the hospital, to her house is about 5 minutes. And you can't see it on here, but the Department of National Defense is just off the map here, Armin.
Yeah.
And they have about 10,000 D&D personnel there. So you've got about 10,000 people working here, and you've got probably another 5,000 or 6,000 working here. So lots of prospective tenants that are not too far away. Like I said, it's not too far from downtown. It's about 17 minutes to downtown. It's walking distance to the Bayshore Shopping Center. So shopping is close by, employment is close by, recreation is close by. You know, these are good things to look for. The other thing that we look for, Armin, is a walk score. Do you know what a walk score is?
Yeah, I've seen this before.
Yeah, okay, so you've seen this part. So this has got a decent walk score, not bad in the way of transit, and lots of bike paths. So that's a good thing. And now we're on the inside. So you remember that door in the window?
Yeah.
So we're in the basement, and now we're looking at the finished product. So this is the little living room here. So this is a renovation. So I don't have any before pictures here. I should have taken those. But if you'd been there before anything was done to it, it was just a basement. So now you've got laminate floors. You've got a little bit of tile here. You've got a clothes closet there, and you've got a living room. But you've got lots of natural light, which is great.
Gorgeous.
There's her the kitchen. The kitchen is decent. She didn't have enough money for new appliances, so she bought used, but it still looks pretty good.
How much were the renos?
I'm going to get to that.
Oh, gotcha.
I haven't forgotten. and then so that's the kitchen, and it has a nice backsplash and a decent tile floor. This is the bedroom. It's a one-bedroom apartment she built in the basement. And again, you can see the windows are pretty big. So it doesn't really feel like a basement. And the first tenant liked green, so we painted it green for the tenant. My wife and daughter did something clever. This cupboard that you see here was actually going to be in the bedroom, but the bedroom's fairly small. And in a one-bedroom apartment, you can take the cupboard out, which we did, and we put it in the hallway, because if you were there alone or with a girlfriend or whatever, you wouldn't mind changing in the hallway because it's just a one-bedroom. If it was a two-bedroom, we would not have done this. Okay, so there's your clothes cupboards actually in the hall. Then here's the bathroom that we put in down there. It's decent, We don't put in bathtubs, we put in showers. Not too many. When was the last time you had a bath?
I can't remember that.
Yeah, you're probably a little kid. So we don't really put in bathtubs. We just put in a nice shower and a sink here. Now, this had a stair to the upstairs, right? But we had to take that out to make room for everything. So this apartment that Mimi built is a legal apartment. It's got a building permit. It's fire separated. It's noise separated. It's smell separated. And when we took the stairs out, we got a little extra storage space here. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's very important, Armin, to put in a separate laundry. People love this as a feature if you can do it. And so this basement apartment also has its own laundry facility. So it has its own ingress and egress. It's not shared with the upstairs. It has its own way in and out. It has its own laundry. It's completely independent. You know that I like tech packages, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So
I'm all over this, and this is a profit maker for us. We put in, thank God we did it, because once COVID hit, we have about 352 units that we manage and own, and they all but two have tech packages, and the only two that don't, both of them are ladies in their mid-90s. They just didn't need them. So there's only two out of 352 that don't have it. And it's proven to be really popular with our tenants. So the moment you move in, you have Crave TV, Showtime, Prime, Netflix, Spotify. You know, you've got all the technology there, and it all works from the moment they move in. And that is a really valuable service. And it's also a profit maker for us. All right. We also use Nest thermostat.
Oh, sorry. How is it a profit maker? Is it just another kind of value added?
No, it's a profit maker. Let me explain. So we have, excuse me, we have a company called AdSmart Tech that puts all the technology into our buildings, and they manage it for us, and we charge our tenants. And we charge our tenants about the same that they would pay if they were working with Bell or Telus or Rogers, or in the United States, AT&T or Verizon, whatever. But you can bring, for example, in this building, you can bring all of these services in for about $150 a month. And then we charge the upstairs tenant $150 and the downstairs tenant $150, so that, you know, you basically are doubling your money. Because all of this technology you can split. Like, I think Spotify allows you to have 10 users on one account. I think Netflix allows 5 or 6. So you can bring it in sort of for $150, split it. If you have a duplex like this, you can split it, and so you get two tech packages are sold. If you have a triplex, obviously you can sell, you know, you can sell the same thing 3 times. It'd be like you and me having a pizza place, and we got to sell the same pizza twice to 2 different people. That would be pretty good. All right.
Do you make it a condition of the tenancy to take on the tech package?
Yeah, we do. We, as I said, we only have 2 exceptions, and they're both ladies. One lady, I think, is 95, and the other's 96, and they just couldn't manage it. But, you know, when we first started doing this about 7 years ago now, initially we got a little bit of pushback, Armin. But as people got to know what we were doing a little bit better, folks were actually seeking us out because we had these tech packages. So I'll give you an example. I actually did a lease myself. I have a property manager who does most of it, and other people who work for me that do most of it. But this, somehow or other, this lady from Peterborough who's moving to Ottawa, she got a hold of me, and she wanted to lease one of the apartments that we have, which was a little bit more expensive than maybe some of the others out there. And I asked her, she's a very nice lady. I asked her why she wanted to rent this particular place. I said, you know, it's probably a little bit more expensive. And she said, it was because of the tech packages that you have. I said, oh, that's great to hear. And she said, this was when Game of Thrones was a big thing. It turns out she was a Game of Thrones addict. And she couldn't miss an episode. And she knew that if you have to call Rogers or Bell or Telus or Verizon or AT&T and install everything and get it all working, it could take a month. You know, it's not trivial to get all your multimedia and computer networks working. It's not trivial. Yeah. And the fact that she could come in, we have these large screen TVs that we install, that they belong to us, they remain in the property. So she has large screen TVs, great speakers, you know, it's plug and play, and she wouldn't miss an episode. So the tech packages initially, yeah, some people did push back, and I would say to them, look, no problem. You don't have to rent this apartment. Go rent somewhere else. And to me, Armin, the fact that some tenants may not want a tech package, that to me is a bit of a warning sign. You know, I have some rural properties, and I rent places to roofers, tilers, you know, carpenters, really salt of the earth people. And if anybody thinks they don't know how to use their smartphone or don't know how to use the internet, they're kidding themselves. They need it just as much as you or I do. You know, yeah, 6 or 7 years ago, we had some pushback, and sometimes I just wouldn't rent to them. And I said, that's fine, but they have to take it, because otherwise, you know, you can lose money on this.
Yeah.
All right. So you asked for the cost. So she bought this property for $345,000, and she paid about $3,650 of land transfer tax. She had legal and closing costs, including title insurance, of about almost $2,000. So she ended up with about $350,000 or $351,000 which was her original cost. She did about $11,000 worth of renovations upstairs, and the basement apartment cost about $75,000 to install. Okay?
Yeah.
So she ended up with a total cost of about $447,000, which was her total cost. And then she got it appraised, and I was a little disappointed. The appraisal came in a little bit less than her cost, came in at $430,000. That is an important difference, because let's say you're doing an 80% loan to value mortgage. If you don't have 80% of that $17,000 covered by the appraisal, it means that you have to find an extra $17,000 of cash, right, to do this. So I was a little disappointed. But appraisers tend to work more for the bank or the lender than they do for you.
Right.
So they're really, even though you have to pay them in most cases, they're really working for the bank or the lender. So anyway, it came back with a lower appraised value than her actual cost. So she ended up having to put more equity in. So to do that, she went to the bank of mom and dad. If you know what the bank of mom and dad is, that would be me. And it is what it is. She needed to do that. Now, the good news is that appraisals eventually catch up with income and with value. And so this was about, it was 3 years ago. You can see it was May of 2017. And she had it appraised when she remortgaged the property last year. So that would have been 2 years after this, in 2019. And the appraisal came back at, I think 535.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was 3 years. Yeah, actually 2.5, I think. It just, the appraisals finally caught up, because, you have income from a legal basement apartment. And of course, there's general appreciation in the Ottawa market, as there is in Toronto. And real estate doesn't always go up in value, but over a long period of time, it generally does tend to go up in value, although it can go up and down, So back then, 2 years ago, yes, it was a bit of a struggle for Mimi, but within a couple of years, values had caught up, and she was able to refinance. She was able to take out another $100,000 and buy another property, right? That's the magic of real estate. So then what happened next was Mimi met a young man that fell in love. That happens too, right, Armin? And she married a very nice young man. His name's Jeremy, who lives in Calgary. So guess where Mimi lives now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, instead of living in the house with the basement apartment, and just to give you a picture of that, when Mimi was living in the house with the basement apartment, after she collected her rent from the basement apartment, and she paid everything, her mortgage, her operating costs, her property taxes, her insurance, repairs, maintenance, everything. She was living in her own 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath, single-car garage home for about $600 a month.
In her new place?
No, in this place that I'm
Oh,
showing
in this
you
place.
here.
In this place, gotcha.
In 2017, after the building was renovated and the basement apartment was rented, in about 2/3 of the way through 2018, Mimi and I sat down and we looked at all of her costs, looked at all of the revenues that she was getting, and she was spending about $600 a month to live in her own
That's
home.
amazing.
Which is really great. I mean, in Ottawa, just a 1-bedroom apartment is about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. In Toronto, I think it's even more. And so she, if you think about it, to live in a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom, single-car garage, nice home like this, close to a lot of good things, for $600 a month, that's pretty good. But when she moved to Calgary, she said, what am I going to do with it? And you know that I'm a buy and hold guy, right? Not a buy and flip guy.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, good. So again, we're on the same wavelength. So I said, she said, Dad, should I sell it? And I said, well, Mimi, it's a good thing that I'm on title with you. So I'm on title with her because she needed some help with the mortgage, right? So I'm on title with her as a joint tenant. Do you know what a joint tenant is?
I I've never heard of joint tenant. I know of, like, co-owning being on the lease. Or
Well,
sorry, not on the lease, on the title.
yeah, so there's basically in Ontario, there's two methods to owning property. One is tenant in common, and the other is joint tenancy. So let's say, Armin, you and I were business partners, and we bought a house together, you know, an investment property together.
Yeah.
We would be tenants in common. And that means that if I get run over by a bus, my half of this property that we own together would go to my estate, would go to my family. And if you get run over by a bus, your half would go to whomever is in your will. Have you got a will?
Not yet, but I'm thinking of it.
Yeah, you might want to do that. I can't remember. Do you have a partner, a life partner?
I do. I have a girlfriend right now, and we have big plans. We are currently living together and figuring out what the next steps look like.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I also have a mom and a brother in Ottawa, and I'm hoping to factor my mom into my plans too, as she's getting a little bit older.
Yeah, so perfect. So, what's your girlfriend's first name?
Her name is Anita.
Beautiful. All right. So, give my regards to Anita. So I'll explain. I'm going to just stop sharing just for a minute, just so we can see each other a little bit better. So, let me explain. I prefer to hold property in my own personal name. You know, a lot of bankers, lenders, mortgage brokers, lawyers, realtors, the financial advisors tell you, Armin, you should have a corporation, to own your properties, your investment properties. I don't actually agree with that. And, I'm not in a position, I can't give legal advice. I'm just a lowly engineer, but I think that that's a mistake for many people. And I'll tell you why. Let's say you and Anita own 30 properties one day, and you listen to those so-called financial advisors, and you have 30 different numbered companies. Each one owns one of those properties, right? So now you have 30 corporations. They each need to file their income tax every year. They each need to have financial statements every year, and they each need to comply with provincial or federal regulations. So there's all kinds of legal filings that you have to do pretty much every year. It can cost anywhere from $3,500 to $8,500 to keep a company alive, to do all these things, because you're not going to do income tax filing for corporations. Trust me on that. That's pretty complicated. So you have to pay somebody to file income tax, to do financial statements, and to keep these corporate records up to date. And that, let's say it was $5,000 a year, and you had 30 of them. You're spending $150,000 a year just keeping your darn corporations alive. I'd rather have that $150,000. Now, sorry.
What about putting all 30 under one company?
Well, that you could do that. That would certainly be better. But many of these financial advisors would say, Armin, you should have each company should own one property, just in case one property gets into trouble. You get sued, or you have a problem with it. Maybe there's an environmental contamination that costs $10 million to fix. Well, that company will go bankrupt, but you still have 29 others.
I see.
Okay. So I think there's some truth to that, but nevertheless, and again, I'm not an accountant either, so I can't give any accounting advice. But the other thing that bothers me is this. They tell you that if you own some of your real estate in a company name, you're going to pay less tax, and that's probably true. If it's in my name or it's in your name and Anita's name, you're just going to take the income into your own name, and you're going to pay whatever income tax you have to pay. And it might be indeed a little bit higher than the company's rate. But then you've got money in a company, which is great, except you can't get it out of that company without paying more tax. It's called, if you pay dividends, you pay tax on dividends. So there's kind of a double taxation there. So I'm not really sold on the idea of having, a bunch of companies, or even one. there's another reason why I believe in holding property in my own name or my wife's name, and that is, I have 5 kids, as I mentioned, and I, as joint tenants, so like I said, if you and I owned a property together, we would be tenants in common. So if anything happened to me or anything happened to you, your half wouldn't go to me, it would go to your estate. But as joint tenants, let's say you and Anita were joint tenants, or you, Anita, and your brother and mom were all joint tenants on a property. If your mom, something happened to mom and she passes away, you can simply, it's very simple, your lawyer can go to the land titles, land registry, and you can delete your mom from the land registry. She's simply deleted from land titles, which means that you and Anita and your brother own this thing 100%. And then, God forbid, something would happen to your brother, gets run over by a bus. Again, you and Anita own it. And then, maybe one day you get really, really, really old and you pass away, and then Anita owns it. So it's a fantastic method of passing on property without having to worry about executors, probate tax, Canada Revenue Agency, lawyers, lenders, bankers, anybody. It's just simply, it's a very, very, very elegant way of passing on property. And then if you're fortunate enough to have children like I have, when the children turn 18, you can add them to a property. And you can add them to a property for, it's an actual legal term, Armin, it's called for love and affection. That's an actual legal term. And so what I did, all my kids are in their 20s now, actually some in their 30s. What I did was I added one child to, at least one child to each of the properties that I own. So, for example, on 3 Splinter, this one that I just showed you, my wife and I are on title as joint tenants with Miriam. And we did that to help Mimi out to get her mortgage. She was a young person and needed some help. So with me on title, my wife on title, she could get a mortgage. But we're joint tenants. It means that when I pass away, I'm deleted from land titles. When my wife passes away, and Mimi will own it. Here's the nice thing. When Mimi has a baby, and she now has a baby, my little grandson, and when Leighton, his name is Leighton, when Leighton is 18, Mimi can add Leighton to the title on 3 Splinter as a joint tenant. And when Mimi passes away, long time from now, long time from now, then Leighton will own it. So it's a really good way to pass it on for multiple generations. The other thing it does, which is really important, is it stops arguments in the next generation. So, if I have a building like 3 Splinter and I had myself and my wife and 5 kids on that property, and then my wife passes away and I pass away and those 5 kids own it, they're going to start fighting. Some of them will say, I want to sell it to get my share. And somebody else will say, no, I want to keep it and rent it out. They're going to fight like heck. So what I did instead is if you have 5 properties, and I have more than 5, but if you had 5 properties, you could have 1 kid on each property. So Mimi will own this building after I go see St. Peter's, and then Rachel will own a property, and Andrew and Matthew and Jessica. So it stops fights in that second generation and even third generation. So believe it or not, I have clients, Armin, from people who are like former students of mine who are buying their first investment property to a couple of billionaire clients. And even my billionaire clients are paying attention. And many of them are simplifying their affairs. I think it's a very good thing.
Can I clarify a couple things?
Sure, of course.
So in order to protect my assets and also make it easier to pass down, I want to have a few things in place. I want to have a will.
Yes.
I want to have, I want to consider what joint tenancy might look like, strategic joint tenancy, and that essentially joint tenancy means who's on the title.
Right.
Is that the correct way of putting it?
I think so. And something else you need to know about joint tenancy. Just imagine that you and Anita are now really, really old. And let's say you have a daughter, you know, her name's Samantha, and you've added Samantha on the title of a house that you and Anita own as a joint tenant. And let's assume for the moment that, maybe you're 90 or 95 years of age, Armin, and your brain isn't working quite as well as it is today, right? And this actually happened to a client of mine, and you need some help. You need a caregiver to help you out, right? Maybe you're having trouble walking and, having trouble with cognition, who knows? And maybe that caregiver isn't really a straight arrow. And she says to you, Armin, I think you should put a mortgage on this property. Maybe, it's $1 million house, who knows? It's 70 years from now or 60 years from now. And, it doesn't have a mortgage. You should put a $500,000 mortgage on it because, there's this new secret treatment in the United States that I can get for you. It's $500,000 and it'll make you feel 30 years younger and solve all these issues. And maybe you're not in your right mind. And so you agree and you go to put a mortgage on. She's going to take the money and disappear, right? I mean, this does happen.
Sure.
However, your daughter and Anita are also on title with you as joint tenants. So guess what? You cannot put a mortgage on without their permission. So it not only gives you an opportunity to pass on your properties, in an effective manner to your wife or your life partner or to your kids, it also gives you a little bit of protection against some, bad actors. The fastest growing form of abuse in Canada is not child abuse or wife abuse or spouse abuse, it's elder abuse. And so it does give you some protection, I think, for that. And that's assuming you trust your kids.
Yeah,
right. I mean, if Samantha was the bad actor, then you're really in trouble. But that's just the way it is.
So with Miriam, what percentage on the title do you folks share?
That's a great question. The answer is with joint tenancy, there is no percentage. No one owns. So if you and I were tenants in common and we were 50-50 partners, the title would show Armin as to 50% ownership and Bruce as to 50% ownership. But in joint tenancy, there's no defined percentage. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but it is a very, very strong, interesting part of the British common law system. And everywhere in Canada, I think everywhere in the United States, this kind of title does exist. I think Quebec is a little bit different. They are based on Napoleonic code, which is based on French law in France. So I can't be sure about how to do this in Quebec. I know it's different, but in the 9 provinces and territories of Canada, and I think in all of the United States, you can do what I just described.
Can you still use first-time home buyers with joint tenancy?
Absolutely.
Regardless of how much each person is putting in?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think it would be better to check that with your lawyer. Do you have a real estate lawyer, Armin?
Not really.
Who did somebody help you with selling the condo?
I did hire a lawyer to help with this.
And what was her or his name?
I think her name is. I'd have to look it up.
Well, so one of the things that you should have is you should have a really good team around you, a good coach, a good realtor, a good real estate lawyer, do you have a mortgage broker?
To be honest, I bounce between referrals and I just see who I drive with.
Yeah, well, look, as a friend and as a coach, I would strongly advise you to develop really deep, loyal relationships with the following people. If you don't mind, just take it down. So one would be a mortgage broker that you like and trust, and he or she will be what I call your chief financial officer. Get somebody you like and trust. Don't don't bounce around. That I think is a mistake. You want, like I have 3 mortgage brokers I work very closely with, and you know, I don't have to, you know, I tell them I'm buying this building. I don't even have to worry about it. They have all my, you know, tax returns, they have my income statements, they have my credit score, they know how I think, they know what I'm looking for. It's you know, and you know, most of the time that these people are paid by the lenders, not by me, but I have a very close relationship with them, and sometimes I pay them as well. So mortgage broker, realtor, a real estate lawyer, appraiser, um, and we're going to talk about contractors and renovators. You know, I have people, Armin, around me that I've worked with for a decade, or sometimes even 2 or 3 decades. You know, I've got contractors. I just tell them, look, we bought a property. It needs a renovation. I want to put a basement apartment over there. Can you just go and do it? I don't even ask them for a quote. I don't. I mean, I've been working with Pat O'Connor, for example, for 25 years. I say, Pat, go over there and build me you know, a nice basement apartment. Right on. And you know, $70,000 or $80,000 later, it's done. I don't even have to, you know, I don't even have to think about it. And having people around you like that like you and trust you, you know, I'll pay them. I'm fair. I never question their bills, and they never overcharge me either. But that makes your life much easier. And you know, if you have people around you that you don't like and don't trust and don't have your best interests at heart, you're going to have a horrible life. And that's just as true, Armin, in your personal life. You know, if you can't trust your life partner, your spouse, you know, that's awful. I mean, that would be just terrible. So trust is a big thing with me. So that's what I would advise. So let's go back. I'll just finish this little case study here. So Mimi can get upstairs rent about $2,000.
Bruce,
Yeah.
Before you move on, what do your contacts need from you in order to trust you?
Well, I think the number one thing is that, you know, I pay my bills. And, you know, I'll tell you, I have a young architectural technologist. His name is Dustin Poole, who does a lot of the design work for me. A wonderful young man. I don't think maybe he's 30, but maybe he just turned 30. This is, let me tell you the arguments that I have with Dustin. He does the design work for me. He gives me a bill, and I turn to him and I say, Dustin, you didn't charge me enough. I'm not kidding. He'll charge me like $1,500 for a set of plans, and I won't accept that. I'll pay him $2,500. I will. It's like, you know, when you go to a restaurant with Anita, you know, do you tip the server?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a tip, you know. So I have people around me that when I ask them to do something, you know, they're gonna hop to it.
I hear you. I hear you.
And that's more important to me than beating them up for, you know, to save $200. So like with Dustin, the last time he did a wonderful design for a commercial building, and he gave me a bill for $1,500, and he got the building permit for me. I didn't even have to go to the city and get the building permit. He did that. And so I said, there's no way, I'm not accepting. He said, oh, is it too much? I said, no, it's not enough. And I paid him an extra grand. He said, oh, no, you don't have to. I said, yeah, I do. It's like a tip, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of being a little bit generous, you don't want to be stupid about it. You're not going to give them $10,000 extra, because that would ruin the project. But being generous with people, paying them, you know, complimenting them when they need to hear something from you, that's important. The other thing that I do is they also know that if they don't do a good job, I will tell them that. I don't beat around the bush. You know, I don't yell at people, Armin. That's just, you know, that's just not something I would do. But if Dustin produced a substandard design, I would tell him that. Or if Pat O'Connor produce some substandard work, I would tell them that too. All right. So let me just show you again the rents here, okay?
Okay.
So after she moves to Calgary, she gets about $2,000 for the apartment, $145 for the tech package. You know, I like storage sheds in the backyard because everybody has too much stuff. So she gets about $85 for the storage shed she has in the backyard. The upstairs pays $225 a month for utilities. The downstairs is rented for $1,230. They also have a shed that they rent for $85. So Mimi is getting about $3,710 a month in rent from this thing. These are her expenses. So her expenses are property taxes. These are monthly, $344, water heater and water filter, water and sewer charges, hydroelectricity, insurance, repairs and maintenance. That's, I think, just an allowance. She pays $138 for the tech package. I don't know what this is, $43 of miscellaneous costs. So about $1,100 a month is her OPEX, OPEX, which stands for operating expenses. That represents about 29% or almost 30% of her gross income. Okay, and you asked me what that 0.66 was, remember?
Yeah.
That's what it is. So as a rule of thumb, I deduct from gross operating income 34% for these operating expenses. So let's say you had a place that was making $40,000 a year of gross operating income. About a third of that is going to go out the window for all of these operating costs. So about, probably about $13,000 or $14,000 was going to go out the window. That's just a rule of thumb. Mimi's doing a little bit better. Her OPEX is 29%, not 34%. But so 34% is probably a pretty conservative number to use.
Yeah.
All right, so her net operating income from this building is about $2,600 a month, which gives her about $31,000 a year of net operating income. You remember the property cost her $447,000. So if you take the net operating income and you divide it by 447,000, you get 7% cap rate. All right, and as you know, the cap rate only measures cash flow. And I don't want you to buy any properties, Armin, whether it's commercial or residential, that has a cap rate less than 6. All right, and if you come to me and you say, look, I found a condo townhouse just like yours, Bruce, that has a 3.5% cap rate, I'm be doing this, Armin. I'll be waving it off. Don't buy it. So 7% is pretty decent for Ottawa. I think she's quite happy with that. And now, in addition to that, houses are going up, on average around 4% a year in Ottawa. So in addition to the 7% that she's making on her cash, she's getting about 4% appreciation.
Yeah.
In addition to that, who's paying off her? She has a mortgage on this property. Who is paying off her mortgage? Is it Mimi? Or is it her tenants?
Tenants.
Yeah. So in addition, the cap rate only measures cash flow. So I want you to think about it this way. Most people think that the 4% in appreciation should be added to that 7%. That is not correct. Because the 4% on, say, a building worth $440,000 is about $16,000 of appreciation a year, right? But if her equity in this is about 25%, it's really about $16,000 on $100,000 of equity. It's really 16%. Okay, so she's making a cap rate of 7%, and then she's making about another 15 or 16% on appreciation. Then in addition to that, if she does have a mortgage, which she does, every month that mortgage is paid, the principal goes down a little bit. Her tenants are really paying for that, not Mimi, but who gets the benefit of that? Mimi does. So real estate is a very powerful thing. And the reason why I wanted you to learn how to use not only cap rates, but internal rates of return is the cap rate measures only cash flow, but the internal rate of return kind of blends those three returns that I talked about, any cash that you're making, any mortgage pay down, and any appreciation, brings all three of them together. And probably Mimi has an internal rate of return on this property of 22 or 24%. That is really fantastic. I think that's about it. Yeah. So that model is is real estate for dummies. I mean, that model has been around for a long time. The one change that I've made to that model is the animation stuff. Because there's no way she would have a 7% cap rate if she didn't have the basement apartment, if she didn't have the tech packages, if she didn't have the 2 little sheds that she was renting. Right. So you cannot buy a townhouse or a house, a single family home, and make it work simply based on, just there's a house and you rent it, and you might only have a 3.5 or 4.5% cap rate. And that's not great, because if you take a 7% cap rate and say a 3.5% cap rate, you take that out for the next 20 years, it looks like that. But you take this one out 20 years, it looks like that. Do you understand? So yeah, it doesn't sound like a big difference between, say, 3.5%, which is what I get on my townhouse, and the 7% that Mimi gets on her property. But that's a heck of a difference over 10 years. Okay, so you have to be able to do this kind of analysis before you buy any property, right? So you're not just going in blind. Most people are just, they have no idea what they're doing. So that's a simple model, and there's nothing wrong with that model, and it works in most cities and towns, and certainly you could find any number of these kinds of properties. The thing is, you have to be patient, right? Like, I don't know how many buildings Mimi looked at before we found this one, but the moment I saw this one, I said, Mimi, you're buying this one. So where do you want to go next, Armin?
Okay, so in my mind, I really just do see the spectrum of quote unquote difficulty, as well as what level of risk I'm taking on. Maybe closer to the more manageable side of that spectrum is the single family detached home that you can convert. Just because, it's fewer tenancies, it's not as complicated a
But if you buy a single family home, you have to animate it.
You have to animate it, yeah.
You have to, otherwise you might as well just go and hang yourself now. All right. So I'm fine with you going. Let's call this the Mimi model.
The Mimi model. Okay, right? I like that. I
like it too. One of the things that you should do, you're obviously very close with Anita, is that after we finish, I'm gonna download this Zoom session to my computer, upload it to YouTube unlisted. You probably, if she's willing, probably Anita should watch this.
Do you mind if I ask her to come join us?
Well,
I'll show you later.
I think we're an hour through it now.
Yeah.
It would be a little unfair to Anita to say, hey, catch up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I'm happy to do another coaching session with you and Anita. Did you send me my $175, by the way?
I did, and you accepted it.
Yay! my accounting system is so bad. You could be fibbing to me. I would never know.
Okay.
But no, I'm serious. If you and Anita wanted to, for pivoteers, I do charge something for it, just because free advice is generally not listened to very much, and also I still work for a living.
I hear you.
But if you and Anita have any further questions and you need any other additional coaching, you know, for 175 bucks plus HST, you can hire me as your 1 hour or an hour and a half coach. So a couple of other things though that I want you to know about. There is another animation that you can do with a single family homes that is really friggin' awesome. And I want to show that to you, okay? And it's not complicated. See if I can, I have to find it, so just give me a second here. Let's see if I can find it. How's the weather where you are?
It's gorgeous in Toronto right now.
We've had an incredible summer here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that it's happening on the back end of a pandemic, but.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Oh,
so let me show you another. This is, again, I hope Anita will spend the hour and a half, you know, watching this, because I think it really, you know, it really helps me that my wife and my family, my sons, my daughters, and my wife are fully on board with what I do and what we do together, you know, because I don't really want to push, you know, water uphill when it comes to my family. You know, I want to have unanimity, and they're all of my kids understand what we're doing, and they understand why, you know, we have a cottage property, and, you know, that's the only property where we have all 5 kids on. And because we're hoping that that's something that will stay in the family for at least a few generations, you know, but that's the only one. All the other stuff is individually, and there's no fighting. You know, I said, okay, Amy, you're on 3 Splinter, and Matthew, you're on 1268 Henry Farm Drive, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they all understand that, and they get along super, super well. But I absolutely want to make sure that the, you know, the work that I've done and my wife have done goes to my children and hopefully the grandchildren as well. Let me show you this though. This is, again, it could not be any simpler. This is a really, really simple animation. And it's, oh gee, I don't know why this is not working. I must have it on, hang on a second. That's why. All right. So this is, you know Frankenstein, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how they put the electrodes, Dr. Frankenstein put the electrodes to his monster, and the monster gets up and runs around?
Yeah.
He animated a dead fellow.
Oh, I hear.
So that's why it's there. So you won't forget what animation means. So a coaching client of mine, right at the beginning of the pandemic, sort of, I think it was February of 2020, asked me, what would you do with $100,000 today during COVID-19, Prof Bruce? And that I thought was a great answer. It's a very great question. And I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but this is what I wanted to show you, and through you, Anita. The hottest trend in real estate today is micro suites. Do you know what a micro suite is?
I've learned a lot about it in your pivot class, and
right. So you can see this is a typical micro suite. You know, I guess the older name for it is studio apartment, but the more modern term now, everybody is using micro suite. So this is the main door here. You come in, you've got a little sleeping area here, you've got a bathroom here, you've got a tiny kitchen, but it works. It's a micro kitchen here. You've got an entertainment and work area here, and then you have some access to the outside. Access to the outside is really important, Armin, because, you know, as Canadians, you and I and Anita and your family, my family, we're all shut up for 6 months in the winter, right?
Yeah.
So having some access to the outside is really important. So this micro suite, I think, is about 330 square feet. So that's a fairly big micro suite, believe it or not. So let me show you one of my friend's homes. This is one of my clients. His name is Ken McKenzie and his wife, Natalie McKenzie. And they're older than you. They're in their 50s, I think, and they're getting ready to retire. And Ken and Natalie said, you know, our retirement income isn't looking as good as what we hoped. What can we do? And I said, well, have you animated your principal residence? And they said, what do you mean? And do you know who Robert Kiyosaki is?
Yeah.
Mr. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Risk that for it, yeah.
Yeah. So Robert Kiyosaki says that your principal residence is not actually an asset, it's a liability. And the way Robert defines a liability as opposed to an asset is a liability is anything that takes money out of your pockets when you've lost your job. So if you have a nice home like this is in a small town east of Ottawa called Rockland. If you have a home like this, nice home, and if you lose your job, if Ken loses his job and Natalie loses her job, they got to pay the property taxes, they got to pay the mortgage, they got to pay the insurance and all these other costs that go with it. So Robert would say that is a liability. So I said, well, no, you should animate even your principal residence. Here in this house where I am now, we have a micro suite in the basement, beautiful little micro suite down there. And, you know, a micro suite in this part of the world would rent for anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 a month, just a little studio apartment in my house. So my house can produce income too. So I believe in this. I don't just tell people to do stuff. Armin, I do it for myself as well. And right now that, by the way, that micro suite isn't producing any income. And you might ask me why. Why don't you ask me why?
Why isn't it producing any income?
Because my youngest son, Matthew, just broke up with his girlfriend and he moved in.
Oh, no.
So yeah, they call this generation of kids, you know, the millennial generation, they call them the boomerang kids. Because they're always, you know, you send them out in the world and you wait, and boom, they come back. So we have, you know, so my youngest son, you know, unfortunately, I mean, he had a very nice girlfriend, but, you know, I didn't ask why, but they did break up and he had to move out and he's living in our basement. But one day I hope he finds another girlfriend and he moves out again.
Yeah,
In fact,
sure.
I think he has found a new girlfriend. He had a very pretty girl here yesterday. They were seemingly having quite a fun time of it. So I think he, you know, so when he finds another woman, I think maybe he might move out. But right now there's no income. But if I needed income as I get older, you know, I do have a micro suite in my house. So I went to visit Ken and Natalie. And do you see this porch here?
Yeah.
And you can see this glass wall here. I'm going to take you inside now. So this, now we're on the inside of that. So this glass here, we're now on the inside of it. So I go in the house and it turns out this house, Armin, has not one, but 2 living rooms. So I say to Ken and Natalie, why do you need 2 living rooms? Oh, they say, well, we don't. I mean, this living room here that you're seeing here is empty. You know, I mean, we hardly ever use it. And so anyway, so this is a picture I took in this direction, and the next slide is a picture I took in this direction. And it turns out this is about a 300 square foot room, and with 8 feet of drywall here, it's a perfect micro suite. And if you recall, it even has its own door. They don't even have to put a door in, it's already there, a door to the outside. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So they could seal it off from the house with, you know, 8 feet of drywall here. And then this is a picture I took when I went outside. This is me here, and that's Ken. You can sort of see the shadow of us, the reflection. And then this is a picture of the porch. So can you imagine, they have this perfect setup for a micro suite, but you know, they're not real estate professionals like me. They don't spend 24 hours a day, 365 days a year thinking about this stuff. They wouldn't know how to maybe do this on their own, so they hire a coach. That would be me. But can you imagine if you were a young person going to the local college and you had this really awesome little micro suite with its own micro kitchen, its own bathroom. You've got a beautiful, you've got your own ingress and egress. You've got a nice place to sit when the weather is warm, right? It's a pretty cool micro suite. And so all they have to do, just to go back, is put some drywall here and put in a micro kitchen and a bathroom. They're good to go. That's an animation. And you'll see why that's such an important animation. So you can rent this micro suite for probably between $900 and $1,300 in their area a month. So if they rented it for $975 with another $115 for the tech package and maybe a $95 charge for electricity, they could get $1,100 or $1,200 for their micro suite. That's a gross operating income for the micro suite of $14,220 per year. You remember that 0.66 again?
Yeah.
So if 34% of their gross income goes for property taxes, insurance, repairs and maintenance, administration, property management, marketing, vacancies, you're left with a net operating income of about $9,400 a year. Typically, these micro suites that we're building cost about $40,000. And that $40,000, by the way, includes furniture. So we do furnish quite a few of our micro suites, but sometimes we don't, but mostly we do. So if you have net operating income of $9,385 a year from your micro suite, and your cost is $40,000 to put the bathroom in, to put the kitchen in, to put the drywall in, and some other things that you have to do, maybe to furnish it, you get a cap rate of 23.5%. So you remember how Mimi got a 7% cap rate?
Yeah.
So 7% I said was pretty good.
Yeah.
How about a 23.5% cap rate?
Sounds nice.
So when I showed this to Natalie and Ken, they said, well, we're only going to make $9,300 a year on this micro suite. I said, that's true. But if you took that $40,000 and put it in the bank, how much interest would you get, Armin?
You'd be losing value yearly because of inflation.
But I would agree with that. But let's say you took that same $40,000 and you put it in the savings account and the bank gave you 2% on. Probably you wouldn't get 2%, but let's assume you do. So I said to Natalie, well, if you put $40,000 of cash in your savings account and you got 2%, you would get $800 a year in interest. What is better, $9,385 a year or $800 a year? Oh, she says, $9,385 is much better. I said, yes, exactly, exactly. And I said, you own a couple of other properties. And then the light went on. Now, something really interesting happened, Armin. Ken is a bit of a handyman. So he was able to do a lot of the work himself. So instead of like if I were to put that micro suite in, I would pay, Pat O'Connor or Chris Long or some of the other guys I work closely with, I would pay them $40,000 to do the work, to furnish it, paint it, make it nice. But Ken was able to do a lot of that work, the drywall and other stuff himself, not the plumbing and electrical, but pretty much everything else. So his out-of-pocket cost of this thing was $16,000, not 40.
Unbelievable.
So his cap rate would, I didn't want to put the actual cap rate in here because it gets so high it becomes stupid and people then stop believing me, right? And I don't want to do that. But for most people who don't have the time or the skills to do it themselves, a cap rate of 23.5% is over the top, awesome, great. But for Ken and Natalie, it's become fantastic. And they're going to do a few more like this in some of their other properties. I'm going to go back again to this picture here. So it turns out, I don't show it in these slides, it turns out that Ken and Natalie actually have a one-bedroom suite in the basement already perfectly set up for one of their adult children who's left. And I said to them, oh, my gosh, you have not only have a perfect micro suite here, you also have that one-bedroom apartment already set up. They said, do you think we could lease that? I said, oh my gosh, can you ever? So they're going to get about $1,100 or $1,200 on the micro suite, and for the one-bedroom apartment, which is very nice, they'll probably get closer to $1,600 or $1,700. So they'll be able to live in their own four-bedroom house upstairs with a micro suite and the basement apartment, and they'll probably end up with $3,000 a month of extra income. That's quite significant too. Do you know what the average Canada pension plan payout was in 2018? It was $555 a month.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's the average. It means about half of all Canadians are less than that. So if you and Anita can live on $555 a month, you don't need any coaching. You know, you're good to go. But almost nobody can live on that. You can't even rent a room in a rooming house now in Ottawa anyway for less than $550 a month. So if you have $555 a month in Canada Pension Plan, and you pay your rent for your one room, you can't eat. You are going to starve. You can't go to a dentist if you have a toothache. You got to find somebody with a bottle of rye and a pair of pliers. You can't afford to go to a dentist. You can't buy a Presto card to go on the subway. You have no money. It's really hard. So it doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but an extra $3,000 a month as you get older can be huge. Can make a difference between eating cat food and being able to go out for the occasional dinner and having an occasional trip. Now think about this, Armin. The people I coach, the minimum program is to have 4, 5, or 6 minis. So if you're going to provide for yourself and Anita, what you want to do is you want to have 4, 5, or 6 minis. So let's assume that you were able to do one mimi, and you had net operating income after paying all your expenses of say $30,000 on that property. Once you have paid off your mortgage, you'll have $30,000 of real money that you could touch, feel, and spend from a mimi. You with me on that? Might be a little bit more than that, but say it's 30,000. If you had 6 of those, 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, when all those mortgages are paid off, you and Anita will have $180,000 a year to live on. 30,000 times 6. So the model that I'm showing you today could not be any simpler. Now, if I asked you if you could figure out how to do one mimi, you and Anita could figure out how to do one mimi, you'd probably say, yeah, we can buy a house, we can find a way to renovate it, find good tenants and all that stuff. And could you manage 6 of them? Probably. Could you buy 6 over a lifetime? Absolutely, no doubt about it. But Armin, have you got a calculator there?
Yeah.
So do this number for me. If instead you and Anita decide, no, we're not going to do real estate, we're just going to save our money. How much money would you have to save, you and Anita have to save, to get $180,000 from your savings account in the bank if the bank paid you 2%? Do you know how to calculate that?
Yeah. What number am I starting with?
So, I said if you and Anita buy 6 minis,
yeah.
Once the mortgages are retired, you'll have $180,000 of income. Net operating money you can touch, feel, and spend. But if you save money, instead of buying real estate, you decide, no, we're not going to do real estate. No, I don't like the tenant thing. We're just going to save our money. How much money would you have to put in the bank to get $180,000 a year in income?
Oh, I mean, okay, well, that's...
So take 180,000 and divide it by 0.02. What do you get?
$9 million.
There you go. Bravo, brother. So you and Anita should have this discussion after she watches this, and she'll be laughing by the time she gets here, I hope. She'll say, maybe one day you hope you'll have kids. While you're having kids, you're going to put $9 million in your bank account between the two of you over the next 40 years. So 40 years from now, when you want to have a little bit of independent income, you've saved $9 million. I don't know anybody who can save $9 million. I can't. But could you buy 6 mimis? Could you buy 6 houses like this in Sarnia or some small town not too far from Toronto? Probably. Could you find good tenants? Yeah, you could learn how to do that. Could you take care of these properties? Well, 6 properties with, say, 2 tenants in each property is 12 leases that you have to do. I tell all of my clients, Armin, to do minimum 2-year leases. Don't do annual leases. That's ridiculous. Because if, let's say you have 12, you have 6 mimis and you have 12 tenants, upstairs, downstairs, whatever, and you do 1-year leases, it means you have to do 12 leases a year. That's a pain in the butt. But if you say to somebody, look, you want this place, you got to commit to 2 years. I'm not, you probably will get that. We do all of ours minimum 2 years. And you still get you can put in the lease that, if there's a 1 or 2% increase in rent that's permitted by the government, you can put in your lease that in the second year, you get whatever the government approves as a rent increase. You understand?
Yeah.
So you're not losing out, your little bit of rent increase. If you're charging $1,500 a month and the government of Ontario says you can put the rent up by 2%, you get an extra $30 a month, which is, buys you a couple of nice meals a year. So, if you do 2-year leases, you've reduced the amount of work you have to do by a factor of 50%, which I think is good. And from the point of view of the tenant as well, they know they've got the place for 2 years. You don't have to worry about that. And if they say, look, I'm only willing to commit to 1 year, you say, that's fine. You can rent somewhere else. I understand that. I completely respect that. But I'm not going to double my workload because of your preferences. I'm sorry.
Bruce, what do you do if the 2-year leases make sense? What do you do if the feds boost up the federal interest rate and you've got 6 mimis with $200,000 mortgages on each?
Yeah, that is a risk, for sure. There are, by the way, you're absolutely right, Armin, to ask, and Anita should know this too. There is no such thing as a risk-free investment. Even banks have been known to go out of business, And I don't think the Royal Bank of Canada is going out of business anytime soon. But there is risk for sure, and there is work. If you and Anita think that you could have 6 mimis and do no work, that's not true either. You have to do some work. For everybody I coach, I make sure that there's no deferred maintenance. So if something breaks down in real estate, if your furnace isn't working, you got to fix it. If your air conditioning breaks down, if your roof is leaking, oh my gosh, you've got to get on that right away. Otherwise, your building will fill up with water and mold, and a $5,000 problem will turn into a $100,000 problem in 3 weeks. So you have to be on top of things. But let me give you an example, and again, this is for you, but also for Anita later. I own another townhouse in a good location overlooking the Ottawa River. It's quite a beautiful townhouse, and I rented it to a lovely couple from Toronto for 2 years, and they pay about $3,000 a month for this townhouse, so over 2 years they're going to pay me about $72,000. That is a lot of money. And they treat this townhouse as if it's their own, and I do quarterly inspections, maybe not me, but my property managers do. We go in and we have a look, make sure that anything needs fixing, if a tap is leaking or a toilet is running or something like that, we fix them. But we also make sure that, our tenants are taking care of the property, right? So that's important. That they're not bashing in holes in the walls, or they're not allowed to smoke either marijuana or cigarettes inside. So we do quarterly inspections, so 4 inspections a year. Some tenants are so good we only do 2 a year. But you can't be lazy, Armin. You actually have to care about people. I care about our tenants. We treat them as if they're gold. A lot of property managers hate their tenants. They treat them as the enemy. I do not. I treat them as valued customers, and if they have a problem, they can come to me. Even if they're having a problem paying their rent, they can come to me, and I'll see what I can do to help. So I have very good relations with 352 tenants, I can tell you that. And my property managers do too. And if they are ever rude to a tenant, that will be their last day working for me, right? So I really believe in having good relations with everybody. I try anyway. But I also insist on good behavior. Like, I don't want wild parties. I don't want the police called. I don't want anybody dealing crack or drugs. So we do screen our tenants carefully, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So anyway, this very nice couple. So in the second year of the lease, I get a call. She has my number, you can get it on the internet. She calls me up, and she says, "We have ants in the kitchen." So really, we have like an army of ants marching across. What do I do? And she was freaking out. I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go to Canadian Tire. I'll do it myself, and I'll buy you 6 ant traps for $5. And you put them around in the kitchen, in the cupboards, and everywhere else. And in a few days from now, there won't be any more ants there." She said, "You'll do that for me?" "Absolutely." So I went to Canadian Tire and bought, these ant traps, and I took them over there in a plastic bag, hung them on the door, texted her and said, "Just come to the door, you can pick them up." And my wife said, "Why did you do that? Why didn't you just tell her to go to Canadian Tire herself and do it?" I said, "Dawn, I could have done that. I could have said, look, just go do it yourself." But I did it because it's like client relations, if you know what I mean. And it's, and I said, also, they paid us over $70,000 in 2 years. And I got one phone call in 2 years. So I said, for $72,000, tell me another business where you can get $72,000 in income and you get one phone call in 2 years. It took maybe, by the time I did maybe it took me 40 minutes, of driving and fussing. But, I was happy to do it. So there is work involved, but maybe it's not that bad, right?
I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say to you, Armin, is this. So she calls me up, asks me for help, and I provide the help. Think about this. How much does a Lamborghini cost? I don't buy expensive cars, but how much would a Lamborghini cost? So like a really cool Lamborghini.
85.
Oh Christ, no, $500,000 or more.
Okay.
So you definitely aren't a car guy either. but they're really expensive. So let's say, Armin, you had a $500,000 Lamborghini, which now that really is a liability. But you had a 500, and I can tell you, if you had a $500,000 Lamborghini, every weekend you'd be polishing the car. You would take it out twice a year, only, when there's no rain or snow or, and you would baby that thing to death. Mimi's house is a Lamborghini. It's $500,000. That's the current valuation, maybe a little bit more. So why would you treat a Lamborghini better than you would treat a rental property? Why would you spend more time with your damn Lamborghini than you would spend, going and buying 6 ant traps for $5 for a tenant who paid you $72,000? Do you know that the average landlord spends far more time with his or her dog than they do with their tenants or their rental properties? It makes no sense to me. First of all, the day that I'm walking behind a dog carrying its poop in my hand, well, that day is never going to come. That is never going to happen. I mean, listen, I love dogs, but I am never going to own a dog because, I think man is dog's best friend. Like, dog is supposed to be man's best friend. No, you're going behind your dog and picking up his poop. I don't think so. But I'm not kidding you. Some of the people I coach, and I kick their ass, nicely. But some of the people I coach, they bellyache. Oh yeah, this tenant had this bush and this, and then this went wrong and that. And I said, Bill, you have a dog, right? Oh yeah. How many times do you take the dog out for a walk? Well, twice a day. How long? Well, about a half an hour each time. So you're spending an hour a day with your dog? Oh, I spend more time. We play all the time. Oh, so how much time are you spending with your friggin' dog? Well, an hour and a half a day. I suppose maybe 2 hours. I said, oh, and how many hours have you spent on your friggin' rental property in the last month? Oh, well, I had to spend 4 hours. You spend more time with your dog every 2 or 3 days than you do with your rental property every month. And your dog doesn't make you any money. Trust me on that. That's a cost center, not a profit center, right? So I do get a little mad, I mean, I in a nice way, I say, no, I'm not going to listen to any more complaints. You get out there and because you go to some people's rental properties The grass is up to here, and garbage is everywhere, and the shutters are falling off, and the screen door is busted, and the roof is the roof shingles are curling because they're so old, and the damn thing is leaking. And then they wonder why their appraisals are bad and why their tenants are so horrible. So, you know, if I took you to a men's store, or I took Anita to a woman's store, and all of the suits and all of the nice dresses were on the floor, and you had to walk over them to pick up a suit and shake off the dust, you probably aren't going to buy a suit. And Anita's probably not going to buy a dress. So why would you have a property that looks just as bad as that and expect to get great tenants? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So I'm giving you a bit of a talking to now, because I hate the idea of people saying to me, oh, you know, it's too much work for me. Well, good. Put your money in the bank at 1 or 2%. Go out and save $9 million and then give me a call. Good luck with that. All right. So the other thing I wanted to tell you is, in my opinion, property management is a core competency. You and Anita should have a very serious discussion about this before you buy another property. You've got to be willing to do some work, and you've got to be willing to take on the responsibility of doing your own property management, in my opinion. You could always hire a property manager, but you know, if you had 300 doors or 500 or 1,000 doors, you are going to have people, you know, working for you in property management. There's no doubt about it. But if you had 6 Mimis, don't tell me that you and Anita couldn't handle 12 tenants. I don't believe that. And I think you should do your own property management. Now, a couple things I wanted to show you, because you asked in your agenda. I'm going to show you my this. This is my tenant lease application form. Okay. You ready?
I'm with you.
Okay. So every tenant that we have fills in one of these forms, and it looks very, very simple, but it's deceptive. All right. So we get the name of each tenant. So if there's a young couple, for example, you know, Bill and Mary, we're going to have their names, both of their names, not just one. We're going to have their home phone numbers and their work numbers and their cell numbers. We're going to have their email addresses. We're going to have their social insurance numbers, and that's important if you're going to do any credit checks. We're going to have references from them for Bill's employer, for Mary's employer. We're going to have a personal reference. We're going to have, for both of them, we're going to have a previous landlord and a previous landlord before that, and we will call their previous landlord, and if they've had 2, we'll call both of them. This is really important. We ask everybody, what is your in case of emergency contact? And we do this for a couple of reasons. We have some older tenants, and if anything were to happen to them, we need to know who to call. But there's another reason why we put that in there. When we rent to young people, they'll often put in their emergency contact mom or dad. So if they don't pay their rent, we'll call their emergency contact number. We'll call mom. And we're not allowed to say to mom, hey, your daughter hasn't paid her rent. We're allowed to say, look, we haven't heard from Sally for a bit, and we're worried about her. Can you tell Sally to give us a call? Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's a very powerful thing. And by the way, when we get in touch with mom, Sally calls the next day.
Right.
Right. So that's a really kind of important thing. Then we ask other questions like number of persons who are going to be resident. So they have to tell us if it's 2 people, that's fine. If it's 3, that's fine. But they can't tell us it's 2 people, and then I find that there's 10 people living there. Okay?
Yeah.
They have to tell us whether they're going to have pets, and if so, what kind of pets, if they're smokers or not. And by the way, we do not rent to smokers. We are allowed to discriminate in Ontario against smokers. So if you smoke cigarettes, you cannot rent from us. You cannot. If you want to ruin your buildings, you want to burn them down, and you want them to smell like heck, and you want to drive all the other tenants crazy, let people who are smokers into your building.
Yeah.
Are there, now this one's one that's unique to us, Armin. Are there any other uses contemplated for the property other than residential use? That's really important. So, for example, I have a number of tenants who run tech businesses.
Yeah.
And many of them will have in the home, you know, 3 or 4 servers that they're using to support whatever it is, home-based tech business that they're running. Do you have any idea how much electricity those 4 servers use in a month?
I can imagine.
It's hundreds of dollars. It could be $600 or $800. So, so if they say yes to that, I have to know what kind of, if it's a hairdresser, you know, if they're going to run a little home-based hairdressing business, nothing wrong with that. Water usage is going to go way up. If they're going to run a tech business, trust me on that, your power rate, your power consumption is going to triple or quadruple or whatever. So when they say yes to that, then I will negotiate an additional rent for a hairdresser for water use, for a tech guy for electricity. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing. Then it says here in this line, and I'm going to send you this form, by the way, just so you have it. So it says here, we, the undersigned, hereby authorize the landlord or the landlord's agent to run a credit check, background check, criminal, employment, and reference check based upon the information supplied. You have to have their permission. And if they're not willing to sign that, they cannot rent from me. Because I really, you know, I'm a very good landlord, I think, but also, and very fair, but I want them to take care of my Lamborghini as if it was their Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Okay. And then here are some questions. You don't, have you ever noticed when people are going to lie to you, Armin, their eyes tend to go up and to the left? Watch my eyes. Look at my eyes for a minute. So ask me a question. Ask me how old I am.
Bruce, do you mind being honest with me about how many years you've been on this planet?
Yeah, I'm 35. It's a natural thing. It's part of, the only people who can lie to you without, you know, moving their eyes sideways and up to the left are like psychopaths. They can lie to you, like they're really good at that. But you know, most people are not psychopaths. So one of the things I do is I interview, or my property managers interview every single tenant. Nobody gets into one of our buildings without an interview. And we ask these, we don't ask all of these questions, but we ask some of these questions because if you talk to somebody long enough, and if they're crazy, their craziness will come out. It will just leak out, you know, and you get a real feel for your tenant. So you have to meet with them. These days, we obviously do it over Zoom because we have this physical distancing that we need to do. So why are you moving? When do you plan on moving? What is your monthly income? Have you ever been evicted? And if people say no, they do it like, and they have been, they do it like this, no, and their eyes move up to the left. How long do you want to rent the property for? Do you have any issues with alcohol or drugs? Are you happy to rent the property as it is, or are there improvements you would like? What is important to you in terms of living space? Are you good about returning your calls, texts, and emails? Do you pay your bills on time? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? How's your credit score? A lot of people now do know their credit score because of services like Credit Karma. Do you know what your credit score is?
I do, yeah.
What is it?
It is 803 right now.
Excellent. Do you use Credit Karma?
I did use it for to get that number, yeah.
Yeah. So Credit Karma is a great service. You know, it's free. It doesn't impact your credit score to check it. And, you know, my credit score is about the same, about 810. Do you entertain a lot? That's an important question because if it's going to be party central, you probably don't want them. Are you planning on staying long term? Do you smoke? Finally, do you have any questions for us? So this is a really, really good form to use. You can personalize it, you can change it, you can do whatever you want with it, but it's a wonderful form. We use it on every single tenancy, and we're very religious about this. There was something else I wanted to show you. Let's see if I have it here. What was the other one? That's the lease application, that. Yeah, so those were the main things I think that we had to go over. You wanted to know, how do you find good tenants? That's one of the ways. You also wanted to know how to find a good contractor, right? So let me show you what we do when we're looking, you know, because I've been at it so long, it's not really relevant to me, but it might be relevant to you, okay? So how do you find a decent contractor? You can piggyback on other people's due diligence. So if you have some friends or family or work colleagues, co-workers that have done a renovation, ask them if they've used a renovator or contract and how their experience was. You're piggybacking on their due diligence, okay?
Yep.
Then this wasn't my idea. I just stole this off the internet, but I do this anyway. Look for signs in your neighborhood. In other words, if you buy a house or property in Sarnia, I'm just using Sarnia as an example, you walk around that neighborhood and you'll see, you know, a roofer, you'll see a plumber, you'll see an electrician, you'll see a contractor, a renovator, you'll see lots of signs. And if they are good enough to put a sign in front of the property, they're probably, you know, going to stand behind their work. So just see who else is working in that area and then call them. Then I do this all the time. Check them out online. You know, you know how you can check out on Google Maps, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's go to Google Maps just for the hell of it. We'll put in Bruce M. Firestone. So if you do that, yeah, I come up pretty quick. And yeah, there I am. And you can see I haven't got many reviews, but I've got 11 reviews and I'm doing okay, right? So you can put the name of your renovator, your contractor, your roofer, your plumber, whatever, into Google Maps, and you probably find some reviews, and some of them may not be very good, and you should look at those. And you know, do you know the site Yelp?
I do.
Yeah, so there's lots of places to go and check reviews, but one thing you have to know is that the Google Maps algorithm and the main Google algorithm, they're two different algorithms. So I check them both with the main Google, you know, so if I just put Bruce M. Firestone in the main Google search engine like I'm doing here, you'll find my Wikipedia page, you'll find my, you know, you'll find my Twitter page, you'll find my main website, you know, and you could just look through that. Maybe some people I've coached in the past don't like me. I hope there's none of those. I don't think there are, but you know, you can also try this. Bruce M. Firestone sucks, and see if anything comes up. You know, so you know, if Armin didn't like my coaching today, he could say, I did some coaching with Bruce, it was horrible, and that would be really concerning to me because those reviews live forever, right? So that's pretty important. So you can do that. So I think that would be useful. So check them out online. Something else, this is, again, I just stole this from the internet. You can check them on the Better Business Bureau website, but I think this is really cool. This was a woman's, that I read her stuff, yeah. She found this. I'll just show you this. Oh, maybe it doesn't exist anymore, but see if I can, maybe, hang on, let me see if I can grab this. So see if your contractor's involved in any litigation. So apparently this site, I don't know if I've never used it, but let's look at it. Yeah, so apparently this website allows you to search for, yeah, let's just search for Bruce M. Firestone and see if there's any litigation that comes up with my name on it. Okay, your search did not match any documents, right? So I would know that I'm not being sued. Let's take one of my, you know, Chris Long, we talked about Chris, right? Let's see if Chris is involved in any litigation.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, let's see.
No, it's not Chris Long.
No, I don't think that's Chris. That's Chris Horkin. So the good news is that Chris is, you know, if you did this, it's a useful thing to do, see if they're involved in any litigation, because there are some contractors, holy smokes, they'll have 20 litigations going on. Those are the people you definitely don't want to. This is another one that I put in here, Armin, which is talk to the renovator or contractor's past and present clients. So not just their references, but I ask them for a list when I'm hiring a new, today I'm putting a new roof on a commercial building that we own. And I got a new roofing company, and I did this. I asked them to give me the names of 4 or 5 of their existing and past clients, and I just randomly called 3 of them. And they all gave this guy tremendous references. His name is David, and they said, "Oh, this guy is on time. He's polite. He's clean. He does what he tells you he'll do." We're super happy with them. So and sometimes they'll tell you, "Oh my God, I would never use them again." So there you go. The other thing too is there are lots of organizations. Do you know what RAIN is?
I haven't heard of RAIN.
RAIN is the Real Estate Investor Network. I think it's like a nationwide, maybe it's even internet. I think it's international. So the Real Estate Investor Network, it costs a lot of money to belong to that group, but there's another group, this one's in Ottawa, called the Ottawa Real Estate Investors Organization. That one costs like $200 or $300 a year to belong. And you can often ask Oreo members, hey, listen, because you go to a meeting, there's 250 people there. You go to the front, you literally go to the front and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to do a new roof. I'm going to put a micro suite in. Anybody know some great contractors who've got time to help me out? So you can go to, do you know what a BIA is?
Yeah, Business Improvement Association.
Exactly. So you can talk to, RAIN is expensive, but Oreo, and every town has some kind of real estate organization. So you can ask a real estate organization, you can ask a business improvement authority, you can ask the home builder associations. There's lots of people who can help you find a good contractor. And again, you can't be lazy, because if you get a bad contractor, he will find ways to cheat you. He'll say, oh, I can do this project in 3 months and it's going to cost you $75,000. You get 3 months go by, it's not half done, and he tells you it's $125,000. You get a contractor like that, you're really in trouble. So these are some simple things that you can do. The other thing I wanted to show you is this, and I'm going to send you all of this after we are finished. This is an hour and a half training I did with a young client of mine. This guy is, you could just barely see his face there. His name is Tristan Pelche. And this is probably the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. You and Anita, if you're going to go ahead with this model, you should do this hour and a half training. It's just part of the coaching. And it will show you how to do proper leasing. Most people think, oh, well, it's easy. You just say, look, it's $1,500 and you sign $1,500. And it's an hour and a half detailed explanation that I did with young Tristan. And I want you and Anita too, if you're going to go ahead with it, to spend the time to do this training, okay?
Yeah.
Because residential leasing and commercial leasing too is tricky. And this thing goes through every detail of it. And if you notice, you'll have to look at this. I even put in, this is my YouTube channel, and this is unlisted, right? So you can't share it with anyone else. All right, I don't want you to post it on Twitter or something, or put it on Instagram. This is just for you and Anita. But you'll notice that I've got Dropbox links in here.
Yeah.
So you can actually do the training, and then you just go through the links, and you can download my standard lease forms, which will really help you and Anita. It'll save you years of headache.
Lovely.
All right. So is there anything else you wanted to ask me before we break?
Okay, there's one thing I want to ask you, and that is, Bruce, would you be willing in future sessions and in follow-ups to help me and Anita identify a potential project that has the potential?
So what I would ask you to do is what I ask a lot of my clients to do, because I coach now all over Canada, the United States. I've got a client now in Melbourne, 2 in Stockholm. Put Zoom on your smartphone, and when you find a property that you like, and you want to book a session with me, then you and Anita will be there with your realtor. Find a realtor that you like and trust. Make sure you find a realtor who's not just interested in selling you shit, excuse my language, but there are a lot of realtors who just want, hurry up, buy this, so I can get a commission, go on to the next one. that is a realtor you don't want. You want somebody who's committed to you and Anita for a lifetime. Like I have clients who've been with me for 30 years, you know, because I really care about people and I care about them. And, you know, some transactions are pretty small. I make a cup of coffee in terms of a commission, or a cup of coffee, you know, doing a little bit of coaching with you today, which is fine. But you want somebody who's committed to you. And
Would you,
sorry, go ahead.
by any chance, would you consider do you offer realtor services?
What I think would be better is I don't like to combine, I do it occasionally, only where it's necessary, but I don't really like to combine coaching with being a realtor, just
Understood.
as a general rule, because you can end up in a conflict of interest. And Armin, if you always put your clients first, always, you're always going to have clients. Trust me on that. And so if I put your interest and Anita's interest first, you know, I mean, I can say, sure, yeah, but what do I really know about buying property in Toronto? I mean, if you were here in Ottawa, I do help out. I helped out one of my clients buy a duplex on Thursday. You know, it's here in Ottawa. I know the market inside out, and he really wanted me to act as his realtor, not just his coach. So I did it. But I don't do that very often. And certainly you would be better served by somebody who knows the Sarnia market, or somebody who knows the Peterborough market, or somebody who knows the Toronto market for that matter, much better than I do. I am much more valuable to you, in my opinion, as a coach. So for 175 bucks, really. So you put Zoom on your phone, and you and Anita then with your realtor can walk me through the building. You can say, look, we're thinking about this, and it's kind of like Mimi's place, but it's a little bit different. We can go downstairs together. We can go upstairs together. Then you can go outside and take me around the building. You can take me down the street. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And what's really cool about that is I don't have to fly to Toronto or Sarnia or Peterborough or whatever, or drive, you know, and I can help you in an hour. And the other thing that I do with those sessions, because I do that, I have clients in Long Beach, they show me through properties exactly like that, is I record it. So just like I'm doing today, it downloads to my computer, I upload it to YouTube. Now you have Prof Bruce for, you know, half an hour, or 45 minutes, or what, an hour, whatever it takes us. And, you know, you have a record of the property as it exists. You have a record of me and you and Anita, for example, talking about how to animate it and how to renovate it and how to improve it, maybe how to finance it. And then if you wanted to show that to your designer, to your architect, to your renovator, to your mortgage broker, to your lender, you've got it all there. It's a fantastic thing. And in some ways, it's even better than me just walking around with you, because we can record it. So I'd be happy to do that, but I don't want to do 10 of them. I just want, you know, you and Anita should go with your realtor. You're going to go look at 10 or 15 or 20 properties, and then you're going to find one. Ooh, I really like this. My dad, if he were here, would say to you, Armin, you know, he's hopefully he's in heaven, but Armin, you know, you might look at 20 properties and you let them all go by. They're not quite right. They're not, and then there's the one that's right. It's like when you meet a girl that you're keen on, you know, you might have seen lots of others, but, you know, you met Anita and go, this is the one for me. And then you sort of try and ask her out for a date and whatever else. Same thing in real estate. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to have good gut instincts. You've got to do the analysis too. So as you heard me in the pivot course, you want your head, your heart, and your gut all to be in alignment. That's the property I want to see with you. All right. And we'll have some fun doing it. I love doing it. I'm really good at it. And you'll have a record of it too. Okay.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
I really enjoyed it. Watch for a couple of emails from me. I'm going to send you the training here and a couple of other things that you know, and go out and buy 5 or 6 Mimis. Do that. One more thing. The last thing I'll say to you is try, and between you and Anita, try and find a community where you want to invest. In other words, if you have a house in Peterborough and one in Sarnia and one in Toronto and one in Thunder Bay and one in Ottawa and one in Rockland, you're going to drive yourself crazy. That is a terrible idea. So okay, you have to pick a community. It could be Ottawa, it could be Toronto, but it could be a smaller town, because it might make more sense at this stage to do a smaller town. And then you buy 5 or 6 in a tight geography. Do you understand that? because property management where you have 5 or 6 houses within a few blocks of each other is way easier. And also, when you animate them, you're going to improve that whole neighborhood. Remember, we started with one voice can change a room, and the room can change the city, and the city can change the state can change the nation. One voice can do that. You want to be that voice in a community where you can have some influence. So you want to pick one neighborhood, and you kind of want to farm that neighborhood.
Interesting.
Do you understand? You actually want to farm it. Trust me on this. This one you're just going to have to take on faith. Toronto's a big place, and if you have one in the east and one in the north, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Don't do that. Pick a neighborhood where you think you can make a living, and buy properties at a reasonable price with a decent cap rate, and animate the hell out of them. Make that neighborhood better, and your life will be so much easier. Okay?
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
All right, and give my regards to Anita, please.
Will do. Much appreciated. You're
I
amazing.
really enjoyed it.